Hello, and welcome to the Sweet and Beverage Tax Prenatal-to-Three Community Grant Request for Proposal Information Session. A little bit about the Sweet and Beverage Tax Fund. On June 6, 2017, the Seattle City Council passed an ordinance, a tax collected on the final distribution of sugar-sweetened beverages by a distributor. It was designed to improve the health of Seattle residents by reducing the sales and consumption of sugary drinks. The revenue generated by the tax is intended to fund programs that increase access to healthy food and support children's health and development. The ordinance also established the Sweet and Beverage Tax Community Advisory Board, a group to advise and make recommendations to the mayor and city council on initiatives supported by the beverage tax revenue. In June of 2019, the CAB conducted a series of community engagement activities meant to capture the voices of residents. The focus of the engagement was programs and services relating to food access, food insecurity, child development, and early learning. At the beginning of 2020, the CAB heard from the Human Services Department, the Department of Education and Early Learning, and the Office of Sustainability and Environment about the investments currently supported by SBT funds. The CAB recommended a public funding opportunity intended for community organizations that specializes in high-quality prenatal-to-three and kindergarten readiness services that seek to reduce the disparities in outcomes for children and families based on race, gender, or other socioeconomic factors. The city currently funds through revenue from the SBT fund and the city general fund programs in prenatal-to-three, including home visiting, developmental supports, child care health consultation, child care subsidies, and quality supports for child care. All of the current prenatal-to-three investments seek to address racial equity gaps and support families and caregivers. This funding program is intended to strengthen the city's work in prenatal-to-three with the core premise that organizations that center community in their work are best positioned to understand the program and interventions that will close the persistent opportunity gaps in Seattle. There are four strategies, four prenatal-to-three strategies. The first, healthy and equitable births, mean that children are born healthy to healthy parents, and pregnancy experiences and birth outcomes during prenatal and postnatal time periods are equitable. The second strategy, parental health and emotional well-being, means that parents are mentally and physically healthy, with particular attention paid to the perinatal period. The third strategy, nurturing and responsive child-adult relationships, mean that children experience warm, nurturing, stimulating interactions with their parents and caregivers that promote healthy development. The last strategy, optimal child health and development, means that children's emotional, physical, and cognitive development is on track, and delays are identified and addressed early. What kinds of proposals are ineligible for this funding? Proposals that provide quality supports or subsidies for licensed childcare are not eligible. Proposals that solely focus on supporting general operations of an organization are ineligible. Proposals that are without a central focus on prenatal-to-three are not eligible. And lastly, proposals that are focused on political lobbying are not eligible. How are funding decisions made? Funding prioritization is as such. Applicant organizations with the following characteristics will be prioritized for funding. They are representative of and primarily serving priority communities. They are smaller organizations, smaller in budget and/or in staff numbers. And that they demonstrate authentic connections to the community they plan to serve. In terms of projects and funding prioritization, Projects that demonstrate the following will be prioritized for funding. Projects that clearly outline and support how the project will positively impact priority communities and meet the grant program outcomes, address an unmet need in the community, and projects that describe a strong connection between the proposed work and one or more of the grant's desired outcomes. Approximately $1.4 million is available for this 2-year grant cycle. Applicants are eligible to apply for a maximum of $140,000 per year, for a total of $280,000 over the 2-year grant cycle. Now let's dig into the RFP application itself. In this segment, I've dissected the RFP application section by section to provide guidance as to how these sections should be completed. This first section focuses on the organization. The difference between a physical address and a mailing address is that a physical address is where you are geographically located. Oops. And a mailing address is where you get your mail. For some organizations, those might be the same. And if that is the case, you would just indicate so by writing same. The next section asks about implementing staff, and 4 terms are used to describe the various roles within an organization. DEEL's operations recognizes 4 primary roles in the context of contracts: the program manager, contract signatory, invoice or billing contact, and fiscal sponsor. Listen to the descriptions provided and use your best judgment in determining who to designate for each of these roles. A program manager is a person that oversees the fulfillment of the proposal's deliverables. A contract signatory, usually the executive director, is a person in charge of the organization as a whole, in contrast to the program manager, who may be responsible for a portion of the organization's work. Invoice or billing contact is usually the person who is charged with sending invoices to funders like DEEL for payment. Lastly is a fiscal sponsor, and if your organization is unincorporated, you'll need a fiscal sponsor. Fiscal sponsorship is a formal arrangement where a current nonprofit agrees to serve as an incubator of sorts for a charitable program that was created by other persons. A fiscal sponsor is a nonprofit organization that provides fiduciary oversight, financial management, and other administrative services to help build the capacity of nonprofit projects, usually in exchange for administrative fee. Because we hope to see diversity in the size of organizations that apply, it is very likely that in small organizations, it may be one person who fulfills all of these roles. Additionally, there may be larger, more established organizations that have the organizational infrastructure to designate a different person to each of these 4 roles. You may not have a fiscal sponsor, for example, so the implementing staff will be reflected differently in different size organizations. Approximately $1.4 million is available for this investment. In the first box, you'll indicate the total amount of funding you are requesting for your proposed scope of work. Making a request for less funding will not improve the attractiveness of your proposal. My advice is to ask for what you need, and if you need $140,000 to perform the work outlined in your proposal, then that's what you should indicate here. This funding prioritizes smaller grassroots organizations. Therefore, having this information is helpful for our RFP reviewers to determine if your organization is one for which this funding opportunity was intended. This is the criteria utilized by the review panel to identify which projects will be funded. There are three categories: connection to community, program proposal, and organizational information. In connection to community, the organizational history and mission serve one or more priority populations, defined as communities of color, immigrants, refugees, people with low income, and English language learners. Clearly identifies the community need to be addressed and how the proposed program or service will fulfill that need. Proposed program or service meets a need in the community not currently addressed by other initiatives. In the program proposal, the criteria are: proposal outlines and supports how the project is likely to exert a sustained, powerful, and positive impact on one or more of the grant's desired outcomes. Project describes an approach to supporting and engaging families and community that is responsive to cultural and linguistic needs. Identifies the need and gaps proposed program is addressing for priority populations. Identifies the outcomes to be addressed and proposes activities that will be effective in meeting outcome targets. Details activities and structure that are age appropriate and that promote students' academic growth, college career readiness, and cultivation of other skills that support learning and social emotional growth. The last category, organizational information. The authoring organization is small with less than 20 staff, has an annual budget less than $500,000, employs staff that reflect the priority populations they serve, has an executive staff and board, if applicable, that reflect the communities and populations they serve, describes how they have established authentic connections to the community in which the proposal intends to serve. The next section is the project narrative. Try to keep your responses to a page or less per question. The reason for this guidance is twofold. This RFP was created to be a low barrier funding opportunity for small grassroots hyperlocal efforts to provide community-informed solutions to community-identified challenges. The questions were constructed to require only the information necessary to determine alignment with the SBT CAB's funding principles. We don't want you spending dozens of hours on your proposals, which is why we established a guideline for the length. The second reason is that proposals are reviewed by DEEL partner agencies and community members. Many, if not all, community members have competing priorities like full-time jobs, families, or school to which they must attend. Keeping responses within the stated length guidelines minimizes the number of hours community members spend supporting this effort. Completing the budget template is a requirement of having a proposal reviewed, but is not factored into the overall score. Being thoughtful about how your organization will direct spending will provide important insight to reviewers as to how the specific amount requested was determined. There are two avenues applicants can use to obtain assistance in completing their proposals. First is through the DEEL funding email address, and that is DEEL, DEELFUNDING@seattle.gov. And some of the reasons you might opt for email is interpreting the text of the RFP or questions around how to submit the proposal. The responses are provided through DEEL's Funding Opportunities webpage and are provided 3 to 5 business days. The second avenue of support is technical assistance. And technical assistance can support with anything. Some of the ways they can support is in determining your eligibility or suitability for this funding opportunity, understanding how to respond to the prompts in the short answer portion. They can help conceptualize proposed services based on applicants' previous experience, connections to their respective communities and areas of expertise. They can help you be thoughtful in your planning and completion of the required budget template, and much, much more. These are the technical assistance providers we are fortunate enough to be working with this cycle. As mentioned previously, applications will be reviewed for technical compliance to verify that the application was submitted complete and on time. To be considered technically compliant, submitted applications must contain the items below. The application may be deemed not technically compliant or not to be evaluated further if the checklist items are absent or incomplete. So first is a proposal that is submitted on or before 3 p.m. Wednesday, June 14th to this email address. The second requirement is that the RFP application is completed. The third is that the RFP application includes these following completed sections. And the last is that the budget template is complete. This is the timeline of RFP activities. One-on-one technical assistance is occurring from now until the 7th of June and can be reached by appointment. The question and answer period is also from now until the 7th of June by 3 p.m. Allow 3 to 5 business days for that response. The proposal submission deadline is the 14th of June by 3 p.m. The review period is from the 20th of June to the 27th of June, and then followed by 2 deliberation sessions, both in June, with the award decision notification occurring by July 10th. You will receive a notification regardless of the outcome of the review. So if you are receiving funding or if you are not receiving funding, you will receive notification either way. There is an appeal period, and that is from the 11th of July to the 14th of July. Then the contract negotiation phase is July 24th to August 31st. And then the contract period is from the 1st of December until the end of November 2025. Here's some reminders as we wrap up this info session. I would reach out to a technical assistance provider. Those email addresses are available on the DEEL's Funding Opportunities webpage. If you have questions about the RFP and don't want to reach out to a technical assistance provider, you're welcome to email deelfunding@seattle.gov. Keep in mind that we respond to those questions within 3 to 5 business days. Proposals must be submitted on or before June 14th by 3 p.m. And when you submit them to the same email address, deelfunding@seattle.gov, with the subject line titled as Prenatal-to-Three Community Grant Program. Well, that's it. Thank you very much for being here and for learning about the Sweetened Beverage Tax Prenatal-to-Three Community Grant Program.